Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Teresa, I wanted to read that blog again. The children are watching because after the week we've had this week, I think it was a good time to return to that. And if you haven't read it, I encourage you to do so. And of course, what I'm talking about this week is just the whole incident with the Gayle King interview with Lisa Leslie.
And what happened in the White House. I mean, just a lot going on. This week was a tough week.
Yeah, it was a tough week. But specifically about that interview where Gayle interviewed Lisa and brought up the allegations against Kobe Bryant. And of course, it just went downhill from there.
Right.
So I wanted us to talk a little bit about that and bring up the children are watching because all of the social media stuff,
response, the backlash.
Yeah, it's just been a lot. I just wanted us to revisit it because again, it's just been a tough week, and I don't know I looked at the interview with Lisa Leslie. I think Lisa did a great job in terms of responding to her questions and being respectful of her friend Kobe. And I do think Gayle went too far. I want to be clear about that.
Oh, there's such a thing as responsible journalism.
Right.
And I really do think she crossed the line. Well, but I'm not saying that she deserves the backlash she's receiving. She went too far.
Yeah. I think maybe if you brought that up at all, I know she's a journalist, it's way too soon. We are all still grieving for the Bryant family and for all of the others. And it would have been different if we'd had some warning or something that Kobe was going to die. But that was, it was certainly unexpected, and everybody's grieving.
Right. Yeah. And it's just not the time to try to sensationalize anything.
Right. That question could have been asked, but certainly the timing was terrible because that is just, we all are still just reeling from his death.
Around him. Right. Other than the goodness that he did, his legacy.
Right.
And, she went too far. Asked the question one time, you got an answer. Let it go, but she pushed and a second and a third time, and it just wasn't warranted, and she shouldn't have done it. But then, what do you think about the comments?
That's really what I wanted to talk about was, the interview was one thing. Yes, she went too far, but I am telling you, the comments and the reaction on social media, it's just been too much. Too much.
I think she should have owned it. I really think instead of her getting on there throwing her network under the bus.
Yeah, and I don't believe that. I think she knew. Yeah.
I think she should have said, "Hey, I made a mistake. Yeah. And I'm sorry," and I think that would have diffused it. But those comments were awful.
Oh, they were, and I'm telling you, one of the first ones that I saw, of course, was Snoop on there. And I am telling you, I get that Kobe was his friend. I understand what he was saying, but I'm gonna tell you, he just went too far.
No need to make it personal, against her. But then, when you think about it, I guess she kind of made it personal. Kobe,
but you don't then though, Teresa. You can't go so far as to call her an MF. That was a lot. But to then, you're threatening her.
Yeah.
And that's just you're talking about other people crossing the line. Well, to me, he crossed the line with that.
He did cross the line, and it didn't. And I get his point that he was trying to make, but what he did, I think, was add fuel to the flame.
Yeah.
And I think that it opened the door for other people to make the same disparaging type of comments.
Well, in the end, to me, the comments are one thing.
It serves no good.
Right. The comments are one thing, but the comments are bad, but I'm very concerned that when you have someone in a position of power, and I'm referring to Snoop at this point, and you say something like that, I don't believe Snoop would hurt her, or that's not anything for me to consider.
Angry.
But right, he was angry. I think he was hurt at some level for Kobe and his family. But this is the thing: you don't know who might have seen that clip of Snoop or heard his words, who may not have the strength that Snoop has, or who may not be stable. And then they hear those words and they are serious about that. And so now you're hearing that Gayle now has to have security. She's receiving death threats. It's too much. It's too much.
It is.
So that's something I think we have to be. When we started Earrings On, you and I labored over doing this. And I mean, I think we shared on an earlier podcast, we actually talked about doing some type of venture almost 10 years ago, 8 or 10 years ago. So this wasn't just something we came up with and said, oh, let's do it. We thought about this, we labored over it, but the whole impetus for us doing this was because we wanted Earrings On to be a vehicle for healing and information in our community.
Right.
And we decided that we were going to try to use this vehicle to try to improve lives. And part of that is we have got to be aware of how we communicate with each other as a community. And it's not to say when things happen that we can't call people out, but that's what the blog talked about. The blog, the children are watching, it was referring to the context of a family, of course, being mindful to how we interact with each other, to be forgiving of one another so that you can protect the relationship. Well, I think that we can expand that to our community.
Right.
That we have to think about what we're saying and how we're communicating with each other and being mindful that it impacts our community as a whole.
Right.
And it's not to say we can't call people out when people are wrong, who betray us, who act in ways which are offensive to us, but how we do it is important.
That is the most important part of it, how we do it. And then you have to learn to forgive.
Right.
And if you don't forgive, it impacts you in so many negative ways. I mean,
well, forgiveness, but also I think the way you move to that, though, Teresa, is that we have to, when you spoke about, okay, when you do something, you own it. But I also think about when you insert yourself, or even if you react to something, we have to own our reaction. Okay, when something happens, maybe if you're emotional about it, it's just like they teach you in the workplace and all of the training about emails and how, that's out there.
Yeah,
when maybe you need to take 10, 15 minutes. And the more upset you are, the more time you need to give yourself before you, just like we were taught, don't send that email. So don't get on Facebook. Don't get on Twitter. Give it a minute before you get on there and you put this out into the public space for other people to hear, which what you're trying to do is send a message maybe about what you're offended by or what you see as bad behavior. But what I see also in that, I get your point, but I believe it taints you as an individual.
Yeah. It actually, if you will, waters down your response.
Right.
It doesn't. You're not making the point. You want to bring out the point that what she did was wrong. And so now that you've actually responded in such a negative way, it kind of negates.
Well, you're right. I think that for me, I get it that it's watered down, but what I see is you lose your credibility.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I've seen people, it's like, well, you're trying to make a point, but you've blown yourself up in your response because it could not have portrayed you in a worse light. And people can't hear you from that. I just believe that people can hear you. You get a better response when you're able to clearly articulate what you're concerned about. And I know for myself, I can't do that if I'm angry, if I'm upset. So I have to take a minute to compose myself to try to come up with a way for me to handle this.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to tell you, I'm straight up. I mean, I'm human. I think I speak for a lot of people. If you're coming at me, if you're coming at me, you're calling me an MF and what you're going to do to me, it's like shut down. Really? Oh, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. You're not talking to me.
Well, and a good thing is that she didn't respond to that.
Right.
Now, then where does it end?
Right,
if you go back and forth.
But if you come to me and say, you know what, Lou, that was straight out wrong. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you why this was wrong. Let me tell you the issue I have with it. And it's just like when I used to do counseling, and clients would come in and they were very angry and emotional. When I made that assessment, then I intentionally tried to follow some protocol to bring some type of order or to that session. I would intentionally lower my voice. Mm-hmm. I would slow down. I would, try to be a bit more still so that the person would know, okay, I can take it down a notch. Because you're trying to cue them in that I get that you're upset, but let's talk about this. I can hear you. You don't need to yell at me. I hear what you're saying. Let's try to see, can we talk through this? Mm-hmm. And when on that blog, the children are watching, I really believe as a community, we need to be aware of how we are conducting ourselves. And during this whole thing with Gayle, somehow Bill Cosby got inserted in it.
Yeah, you do know he tweeted from jail.
How
was that?
I know, right?
How was that? And I mean, he admitted guilt, so he's guilty and he's serving his time.
But then, to me, that's what I'm saying. You're upset because you feel like people are tainting Kobe's legacy, but you taint it by allowing Bill Cosby to be a part of that discussion.
Yeah,
because I don't get that at all.
Bill,
so
sit down.
It's like what we do. Okay, well, in our community, it's like, well, okay, we're canceling people. We don't want to hear people, but also we want to give people a pass who aren't deserving of a pass.
He's not deserving, and you're right, it just messes up the conversation.
Right.
It actually takes away the opportunity to make a point.
Right.
Gayle needs to not do that when interviewing people, right? But now we're talking about Bill Cosby. Why?
Right. So
no, I mean, and to bring up Bill and Kobe in the same conversation,
it's like, really? That to me is disrespectful.
That is disrespectful. That to me is,
and I take issue with that.
I do too.
But again, our whole purpose today was to just say that now, in the climate that we're in, this could not have happened at a worse time. Like we said at the beginning, we're all on edge. It's a tense time because of what's happening in Washington, and then this is thrown in there, and Kobe's death, of course, we are all reeling from that. So and everyone else who died. But the point is that since we know that, can we maybe just take it down a notch? Just take it down a notch on social media, and just be mindful that real lives are impacted.
Yeah. Can we just, and taking it down a notch, can we specifically think before we tweet? Right. Just think about it.
Just exactly. Because
one of Snoop's points was that Vanessa and the children and those other people who lost, they're all impacted by these type of comments.
Right. And he was exactly right.
He is right. But look at what he said about Gayle. She also has a family.
Exactly.
Not only that, Snoop has a family.
Right.
So they're all watching.
And that's what I mean. So in trying to make a point, you then portrayed yourself in a way that just, it negates your credibility.
So let's think before we speak.
Exactly. So, and I think that's what we want to end with today, that it's been a rough week. And unfortunately, with everything that's happening, in Washington. As a community, we may have a few more rough weeks. So let's try to get it together, calm down a little bit, and try to work through this. I think that's all that we have here today at Earrings Off. Thank you so much for joining in. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Please go to our site at www.earringsoff.com. And you can also find us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and we're also on Stitcher. Because here at Earrings Off,
when we know better, we certainly do better.
Have a good day. Hang in there.